Welcome everybody to a brand new video. Today I want to talk about a recent controversy, and I'm a little bit late to the party. A lot of people have already given their thoughts on it, but I kind of wanted to wait until this died down until I gave my opinion on it. And that is the recent comments that Joe Rogan made on his podcast about video games. This seemed to spark a lot of controversy in the gaming world, and I have some pretty strong opinions on the matter, and I wanted to flush those out in a video so that you guys could hear what I have to say. Before we get into that, for the record, the gameplay in the background is the gameplay I mentioned a few videos back where I said I might use it. It is a triple gunship with the blunderbuss on shipment, which is just crazy. I was just fucking around and I had an absolutely insane game with the blunderbuss, and I needed to save this gameplay, and I'm glad I did because I knew it would come in handy. I started originally with the trench gun, but then I moved over to the blunderbuss later in the gameplay. Anyway, I hope you guys do enjoy the gameplay in the background, but let's hop straight into the topic. Joe Rogan was on his podcast, and I personally like Joe Rogan quite a bit. I've watched a lot of his highlights. I don't actually tune in for the podcasts whenever they're going on, but I do like to watch highlights of it on YouTube, and I like to listen in on the different discussions that he has. I do think it's pretty interesting. It's the most man thing on YouTube to watch, and I don't mean that in like a macho manly type of thing. I just mean in the sense that like it's such like men's entertainment. It's like the most testosterone fueled content you can find on the internet, and I just fucking love it for that reason. Not saying that women can't enjoy it, of course, but I'm just saying that it just really appeals to guys for some reason, and you know, I enjoy it quite a bit. So I did want to mention that I do like Joe Rogan, I do like his podcast, but that doesn't mean that I'm just biased and that I automatically agree with him on everything that he says. You know, I obviously have my own opinions on certain matters, but recently he came out on his podcast and said something that sparked a lot of controversy. As I said, it pissed off quite a few people. He said that video games are a big problem and they're a huge waste of time because they're extremely fun and addictive, and you just end up spending way too much time on video games and not focusing on things that could benefit your life, further you in your life. And of course, comments like that are obviously going to piss off quite a few people. And just for context, I didn't actually watch the entire podcast. I only watched the clip that was, going around. So if I do miss something, it's very possible that I did. But I just want to talk about the clip specifically that was going around because I don't really feel like it impacts my overall opinion all that much. I did watch that, and as somebody who plays video games quite a bit, I've been playing video games ever since I was a little child. On a single piece of entertainment, video games have probably taken up the most time out of my entire life. So some of you guys watching this video might be surprised to hear that, generally speaking, I actually agree with Joe Rogan and his arguments. Now, I know that by saying that, people are probably gonna dislike this video, but I really encourage you to stay until the end, because I'm not just going to blindly agree with him and say that video games are the worst thing ever to happen since Hitler or anything like that. I want you to hear me out and hear why I agree with him. I want to tackle some of the arguments that some people try and make when it comes to playing video games and spending a huge majority of their time with them. A big argument, and probably the first one you'll hear when somebody says that video games are a waste of time, is you'll get people who point to Ninja and all these professional gamers or their favorite YouTuber and say, hey look, this person plays video games, why can't I do that? And that's totally fine. If you're the type of person who wants to pursue a career in gaming, you want to do something that's related to gaming, whether that would be streaming on Twitch, creating YouTube content, becoming a professional gamer, if that is your goal and you're actively working towards that, I think that's completely fine. In that scenario, I wouldn't consider gaming a waste of time, because in a sense that would pretty much be you creating your own business from scratch. And of course, when you start any sort of business independently, you're not going to make money immediately as soon as you start it. You'll probably have to put in a good amount of time, sometimes a few years of work before you see any fruits from your labor. So I do want to clear that up right away. If you're looking to get into the gaming industry and make money and benefit your life off of playing video games, then I don't think this really applies to you. However, I feel like this argument is used way too much much for people who are trying to defend themselves. Because let's be honest here, 99% of people who are playing video games are not playing video games because they want to create a career surrounded by it. The majority of people who are playing video games are just playing them so that they can escape, so that they can relax after a hard day of work. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we have to make that distinction and mention that that is the case. And I don't feel like it makes any sense to make the argument that video games are not a waste of time when the majority of people do play video games not to advance their life, but simply just to escape. Some of you may take issue with the fact that I defended people who are trying to advance their career with video games by saying that, oh, you're biased, Brandon, because you run a YouTube channel. Isn't it your goal to turn this into a career? Actually, no. I gave up trying to make YouTube a career quite a while ago because it just simply was too stressful for me. I just enjoy doing it and taking it a lot more lightly. So no, I don't actually do YouTube because I want to turn it into a career one day. I strictly play video games as an escape. It's not the only reason, but the biggest reason why I play video games is not to make YouTube content. That just so happens to be a side project that I work on in my spare time because I enjoy doing so. But I mainly play video games because I like playing video games, because they're an escape. I just love playing them. I've always loved playing video games. So I think it's important to mention that I'm not going into this with any sort of bias for video games, for the gaming industry, for YouTube, content creation, or whatever. As I said, if that's the route you want to go down, then I don't think it's a waste of time. I think you can absolutely do it if you're willing to put the time and effort into it. But I'm speaking for the majority of people who are just playing video games because they enjoy them and because they want to escape. People like me. In that scenario, which is the majority of people, are video games a waste of time? Yes. The answer is yes. Video games are a waste of time. And I know I just racked up even more dislikes, but again, listen to what I have to say. Think about the way you're interpreting when people say that video games are a waste of time. Ask yourself this. If video games are a waste of time, which I believe they are, is that necessarily a bad thing? Like, seriously, think about that. A lot of people, they react so strongly when they hear that someone calls video games a waste of time. But try and think for yourself a little bit. Is that really a bad thing? Don't just automatically get emotional and freak out when someone says that video games are a waste of time. They very well may be. But is that in and of itself a negative thing? I don't have a straightforward answer because it all just depends. It depends on the type of person you are. If you're playing video games like 16 hours a day and you need to get a job and you're not bringing any income in and the only reason you're playing video games is because you just like video games and you're completely ignoring all of the other responsibilities you have in your life, then yes, video games are a waste of time and are considered a bad thing for you because you're neglecting your other responsibilities. It's not healthy for you to only play video games and revolve your entire life around that. However, on the flip side of that coin, if you're the type of person who just likes to play video games whenever they have free time, let's say during this pandemic, you don't have a job, you either lost your job or you're simply just out of work for the time being and you just like to play video games because you don't really have anything better to do. In that case, I would still consider video games a waste of time, but I wouldn't consider it a bad thing. You're simply just playing video games during your free time. You don't really have much else to do and it's just a way to pass the time, and I wouldn't consider that a bad thing. If you're the type of person who has a full-time job, who is already saving up their money, who is already putting it to the side to invest in the stock market, in an index fund, or whatever the situation may be with you, and you're simply just playing video games during your free time because it's a way for you to relax, again, video games are a waste of time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It all depends on balance, people. It depends on the type of person you are. How engaged are you in these video games? Are you taking it to an unhealthy level? Or are you just playing because you enjoy it and you understand that you do have other responsibilities in life and your life doesn't revolve around a video game? These are the type of questions that you need to ask yourself. Don't lie to yourself and say that video games aren't a waste of time, because I personally believe it's very important to be realistic with yourself. If you are playing video games and you're not trying to pursue a career in the gaming industry, I think it's important for you to take a look at your hobby, reflect a little bit on yourself, and ask yourself, am I taking this to an unhealthy level where I am ignoring everything else that is important in my life, or am I just enjoying this during my spare time and playing video games in a healthy way? If you're on the side that says that you play video games in a healthy way just as a fun waste of time, then you're not going to care what anybody has to say. You're not going to automatically just invoke an emotional response when somebody says that video games are a waste of time, because in your mind, you already know it's a waste of time. If you're on the other side and you're lying to yourself saying that video games aren't a waste of time and you're neglecting any sort of responsibility in your life, then yes, I think that is a bad thing. That's something that you need to change. It's a behavior that you need to change. I don't have the answers for everybody. For some people, video games are not a waste of time. For the majority of people, it is a waste of time. But for that majority of people, you need to decide whether it's a healthy hobby or something that is taking away from your life. You also need to take into consideration that if you're having fun, then perhaps that wasted time is worth it for you. And that's pretty much it at the end of the day. Yes, video games are a waste of time, but who the hell is to say that that's necessarily a bad thing? It all depends on balance. It goes from a person by person basis. And with that being said, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. So yeah guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you smack the like button. If you want to stay up to date with my content, please be sure to subscribe. I'll have my last video in the corner. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely make sure to check it out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.